The transfer track and station are in place, and it's time to launch our way into the final stages of construction. Stay tuned for further details. What's up guys, Dr. Coaster here on behalf of the Georgia Coast Connection, and welcome back to another ArieForce One Construction update. Before we get started, I just want everyone to know that all photos and footage included in any of these construction updates are free to use with credit. I'd also like to thank my Georgia Coast Connection partner Christopher as we gather this content together. I'll link his pages down below. Last week I made it out to Fun Spot Atlanta like I typically do to catch up on the park after taking a week off. Upon arriving at the park, it was clear that RMC was added again with some quick-paced installs. This has been typical throughout this build process. A week will go by where seemingly nothing really gets done, everything seems to be moving slowly, or inspections are going on behind the scenes, and then boom, a ton of supports and tracker installed. This week, the case was no different. We saw last week that RMC had officially begun work prepping the supports for the barrel roll and chili dip, while also preparing the transfer track to be installed. The supports coming out of the outer banked airtime hill were also installed, and we saw the pre-lift section come together before our very eyes. All of this came on the heels of the Raven Truss dive being completed, and RMC moving their efforts away from the front section of the ride. This week, RMC continued pushing towards the completion of construction, and they got some stuff done a lot quicker than I expected them to. They never ceased to amaze me, and this week was no different. They kept up their work while coexisting with Fun Spot, and all of the improvements they continue making to the park, including, but not limited to, a new ride and a freshly paved parking lot. So let's start out by taking a quick look at both of them before getting into the coaster. Again, I'm not going to waste too much time admiring the parking lot, but based off of the new equipment on site, I suspect we should be seeing some more movement here soon. Some work also still needs to be done in the retention pond. Moving on to the flyers now, and there doesn't appear to be any crazy new progress here compared to last week, when we saw them go from literally just some rocks in the ground to a completely installed attraction. I haven't heard anything about an opening date for this, but imagine that as soon as it clears inspections, it should be open to the public the same way the Tilt-A-Whirl did. It's gotta be within a couple of weeks. Alright, now let's talk about the progress in ArieForce One itself. Let's start out where we always do, and see if there's anything new behind the arcade. Similar to the past several weeks, there doesn't appear to be anything new here. But with what we saw last week with the new supports arriving on site, I'd expect to see the supports here linking up with the new ones in front of the arcade within the next few weeks. While I was back here, I also checked in on the track that had been laying back in the storage area in the woods for quite some time now. This has been sitting back there for probably about a month, and I suspect this will be the barrel roll once it goes vertical. We'll keep checking back here each and every week for any changes, so we'll know exactly when that barrel roll and chili dip start to pass over the arcade. After finding the supports I found last week, I was eager to check out the status of what was going on in front of the arcade, so I boogied my way up there next to see what was going on. I could hear construction going on from the time that I arrived at the park, but I wasn't 100% sure where it was coming from until I got here. What I found was that RMC was fast at work putting the supports together that I just talked about, bringing us one step closer to seeing these anticipated elements installed. RMC was also using the crane at this location while I was at the park to bring more and more supports to the assembly site. To the RMC crew that saw me filming, keep up the great work. You all are killing it, and we can't wait to enjoy this work of art that you're all assembling. None of this would be possible without y'all's hard work and dedication, and I know I speak for all of us when I say that. Thank you so much. As for the supports closer to the arcade, I didn't notice anything new here, but I could be wrong. The supports for the quad down are still vertical on both sides of the walkway, and more supports are organized and sitting nearby. We haven't seen a lot of recent progress here, but based on recent events, more should be coming very soon. If you're watching this and you're not familiar with ArieForce One's layout, this is where a barrel roll or pass of the arcade building for one of the wildest coaster elements out there. Moving on to the double up now, I didn't notice anything too crazy here either, but something just dawned on me while putting this video together right now. The only elements remaining to be constructed on ArieForce One all pass over a structure of some kind. The barrel roll and chili dip pass over the arcade, the double up and big drop pass over the snack bar / ticket booth, and then I'll get into the details about the outer banked airtime hill here shortly. As for the double up and big drop, we saw this go vertical for the first time last week, and as I just mentioned, this will pass over the snack bar / ticket booth seen here. We should definitely see some progress here soon, but it's not a surprise that there's not too much to be seen here this week because of what I'm about to show you. This week, RMC not only topped off the transfer track, but they have now completely taken the station vertical and finished it off with track. Now, the actual buildings that will one day surround these structures is yet to be seen, but this was the first sign of any movement that we have seen with the station, and save a drive tire or two and electronics, this is now all completely installed. Not only is it installed, but it is also now attached to the pre-lift section as well. This was once an unknown portion of the ride and we really didn't know what it would look like. But take a look at this. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the drop out of the station. Maybe I'm overreacting, but that's a pretty solid little drop to get the ride started off, especially since it gets followed up with these 2 bunny hills to conclude the pre-lift section. Keep in mind that these trains will also be 5-car trains versus what we're used to seeing on typical RMCs with 6. With these early elements, we should get a feel for how these trains will perform pretty quickly. If not here, then definitely off of that first, or should I say, second drop. Before moving on from the pre-lift section, Fun Spot playfully asked fans on Instagram to name this element earlier this week. Whether or not any of these will actually stick, and if the park will actually use it or not, I don't know. But the sequence of elements are the only ones in the ride without a name. I'm personally a fan of the Chili Double Dip, or just the Double Dip, playing homage to the Chili Dip, or the Launch Pad, to stick with ArieForce One's theme of flight. What would you name this element? Drop it in the comments below, or over on their Instagram post, and Fun Spot just might see it. As for the other banked airtime hill, RMC appeared to be working on assembling the first section of supports for the ride here next to the station. This element is going to be unique in the fact that it will be passing over the pre-lift section of the ride, before heading down into the double up. I'm not sure how soon we will be seeing this go vertical, but my current suspicion is that we will be seeing the remaining supports shoot up before we see much track added. I could be totally wrong, however. Lastly, when I was filming last week's video, I totally forgot to go check in on the Raven Truss dive one last time. I hadn't really grabbed any footage of the elements since they had wrapped it up, so this week I wanted to showcase it a little bit to wrap up this update. What I really want to show you is just how close these supports are to the track and how the train is going to seemingly just squeeze through the truss structure. The head and hand choppers here are going to be, I'm just going to say it, possibly the best out there. And I can't wait to ride through this and watch other trains pass through it as well. ArieForce One's construction continues to progress, and whenever it does open, all these elements that we see coming together are sure to deliver. If you're still here, I've got another Georgia Coastal Connection announcement. Later this month, date and time to be determined, we will be attempting a Goliath Marathon. Not just riding Goliath a lot of times, no. I'm talking about a full-fledged marathon. 26.2 miles of track, or approximately 31 laps on Goliath. Now, you don't have to ride this many times, and you can branch off and ride other rides at the park as well. This is all just a fun way to follow up on our last meetup that we did, since everyone had such a blast doing it. More details will be coming out later this week, but we just wanted to have this on everyone's radar going forward. Thank you all for watching. That was the 25th of many ArieForce One construction updates to come. If you don't want to miss out on more construction updates like this, then be sure to subscribe to the channel, as many more of these will be coming out leading up to the opening of the ride. If you haven't already, then also be sure to follow Georgia Coast Connection over on Instagram, your home for all things ArieForce One. If you're feeling inclined, then you can follow me as well at Dr_Coaster. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.